Hey there. Today we're talking about how there's so much gold in the wounds that we've experienced, right? So here we talk about being the wounded healer. The wounded healer is an archetype that was described by Carl Jung. And his theory was that some of us come here and we use the wounds that we've experienced to help other people, coining us as wounded healers, right? So um, today, what I want to talk about is just how much gold there is in all of the wounds that we have, and how sometimes people will kind of walk around with this concept of like, these are the things that have happened to me. And we carry behind us this like train of luggage. If you can picture just like one suitcase linked to another suitcase, linked to another suitcase, and each of those inside of them has a whole story of like what has happened to us in the past. And so human beings on the earth tend to walk around with all of this, like we call it baggage, right? And it's these stories that we carry around, we call them our identity. And very often we carry them with this concept of like heft, right? They are heavy, they are laden with emotion and pain, sorrow, disappointment, anger, fear, all that stuff. And the idea here is that people like you and me, what we do is we take those wounds and we unpack them. So we actually like open up suitcase number one. We're like, all right, let's go in. Let's figure out what the heck this was and what did it really mean? What did it trigger inside of me? And what was the deepest root that I can possibly extract here? How can I name this? How can I transmute it? How can I make amends with the situation that had occurred, so that I can turn this from this like heavy luggage that I'm dragging behind me to essentially golden light, if you can picture that, just kind of like this effervescent, almost like the halos that were painted above the saints' heads in art. Uh, so how can we take all of this baggage and make it lighter, right? Like that's the whole goal. So those deep wounds that we have, they're actually where our deepest gifts are. So if you go into that baggage and you start unpacking and you start realizing, wow, this is what happened to me. Like when I was a kid, my mom she used to go crazy on me and she would just scream and yell, and I would just be in this like stunned deer feeling when that would happen, and what was that, and where does that part still live inside of me today? Like how do I deal with criticism now, and how do I deal with intimate relationships now? How do I relate to women in my life? How do I respond to stress? Do I freeze like that? Do I freeze? Do I fawn? Do I fight? Do I flee? Like what are my responses to similar situations? And when we start to unpack each of those suitcases and we remember the stories, those tales that are inside of that suitcase, it's important for us to go through there, not to get stuck in them. Like we don't want to go back into that loop and stay there for too long, but it is really important to go in and actually feel what's going on, and remember those stories, and remember them not just from this like cerebral context, but from a soul level. Like how did that go in, and what did that create inside of me? So one of the cool things I was given at one point, I get these like visuals, and this is how God teaches me and talks to me, is through symbols and visuals. And very often it's just an object that I'll see, and then I'll get a little download teaching about what that symbol meant. And one day I had this golden harp in front of me, is what they showed me. It was this giant golden harp. And the golden harp was strung with all of these strings they were so fine. They were like pieces of like little baby hair, so fine, little filaments of energy. And they were showing me how this harp is what our life is. Essentially our life is full of all of these strings that we've created, and each string is a resonance of something that has happened. So there's really pleasant strings on there of things that make us feel joyful or comfortable, or that light us up and make us feel inspired. But then there's also these strings that are like deep heavy ones that, they when they get resonated, like vibrated by a similar experience in our environment, they feel bad. And so this harp that we've got going on is kind of like, within ourselves we have this capacity to create our own signature tune, like our own signature vibration. And almost the way that like a whale has a song, right? Or an animal has their own tune, or a bird has its own chirp. So we have this ability to create our own sound, our own vibratory field. And the way that we do that is by choosing which of these filament like hair like strands we're going to be activating at any given time, which was absolutely beautiful. When I saw this, there was just like tears pouring down my cheeks. It was a stunning and beautiful lesson for me, and I absolutely loved it. So there are times when there are strings on that harp that have been played so often that they become part of our actual resonance, like our signature. And when we interact with other people, that chord is being vibrated and activated in our interaction with other people. And this happens a lot, obviously, in relationships where we get to know people, we live with them, they are our partners in life or our workplace, our employee friends and cohorts. And so the more we get to know somebody, the more that we get to understand their actual triggers, their actual like individual strands. When we just know somebody peripherally, we're just sort of getting the overall idea. We're hearing like the whole symphony of their strings playing together. We get like a vibe from everybody. But when you really get to know somebody a little bit more on a more intimate level, you really start to understand their strings. And that's interesting because don't we even say like, oh, she really knows how to tug at my heartstrings, right? Or let's go pull some strings and see if we can get tickets to that show. Like we actually use the word strings in our life, even like string theory. So anyway, back to the harp. Back to the harp. The harp then represents all of these different strings. It's like this holistic concept of who we are. But we have options and choices as to like what those strings are, and we can actually remove strings, like deactivate them and remove them and then replace them with a new string. Like we have this beautiful ability to restring our harp at any given time, to reset our resonance and to change our vibratory field and our actual sound, like our actual vibration. And we're supposed to. That's the thing. It's not like we're supposed to get stuck in this like web of messy strings. We're supposed to be this resonant, harmonic being who is here to create beauty, which is, I mean, if you've ever heard a harp play, it's hard to hit a bad note on a harp. My daughter, when she was little, desperately wanted to play an instrument, and we started with the guitar, but that was really hard because she was little, and guitar is kind of awkward for a child at like age 5 to play or 6. And so we found a harp teacher, and she started taking harp lessons. And I joked with the harp teacher that, like, first of all, it's the most beautiful instrument I think you can put in a room. And secondly, like, there's really not a bad sound that can come off of a harp. Every string is beautiful. And even the way you play a harp is beautiful in terms of like the way that you move your hands and your arms. Anyway, but I digressed. So back to the topic. Okay, so if we are able to use this harp, right? And we look at the harp holistically and we see that there are beautiful strings on this harp that play such melodic sounds, and they make us feel good as we're strumming this and activating these certain sensations inside of us, this resonance. Then those are the strings we stick to, right? Like that's being a high vibrational person. It is resonating with all of the best qualities inside of you, the best joyful things. I picture this as how I feel when I go on vacation. So if you put me on a mountain out west in Colorado, my heart does this thing where I am just like beaming with joy and gratitude and love, and I am like in a high vibrational state. So you picture on the harp, I'm stringing those high vibrational notes that just feel like peace and love and being in the flow of life, connected to Mother Earth, connected to the great big sky, and the sun feels so near to me when I'm there. And those great expanses of, how big the mountain is, how big the vistas are when you're looking out, and the giant valleys, how small the trees look, from far away, and then up close they're giant. And then similarly for me at the beach, when I go to the beach, I'm in completely different resonance than I am anywhere else. Like I am whole when I am there. I am like the highest version of myself. I'm most creative when I'm there. I'm most joyful and loving and go with the flow. I'm literally home when I am near an ocean on a beach. And so those experiences then would be, if you think about the harp, like the beautiful, beautiful strings that I'm vibrating, and I'm feeling very high and happy and uh, in the pocket kind of feeling. And then there's times when I am encountering the people who have inflicted the most pain in my life, who literally think it's their job in this world to make my life miserable. And I maybe need to be near them because it's like a family event of some sort, or a work experience where there's just that toxic person who just, oh man, they just desperately want to like ruin every day, right? And so those strings that are being triggered, is it the actual person? Not really, because that actual person's outside of me. So what is it that they are triggering? Like, which strings are they vibrating inside of me that is making me feel yuck? And so this is where the gold is, right? This is like the golden harp, the golden nugget, going in and looking at, okay, so when I am in this situation with this person, right? For me, it's very often my ex-husband. His mission in life is to destroy me, essentially, which is freaking weird, but okay. Um, his mission is to destroy me. So in any communication that I have to deal with him, anytime I have to see him because we have children together and activities we need to be I just, at least I used to get this like sick feeling inside of me. Like I was like, ugh, I just felt gross, like slimed, right? And I don't anymore, people. Like I've gotten past this, I have healed this, and I am able to look at it now and be like, wow, that was fascinating. But when there's this like yuck thing that gets resonated inside of us, rather than just looking at that person, rather than me looking at him and being like, he's such a giant douchebag. And I mean, in a lot of ways, the dude is, let's be honest. Um, but instead of looking at him and putting all the blame on him and being like, oh, I'm such a victim and this man is trying to get after me. I did need to be there in that mentality for a little while for sure. But the healing doesn't happen when you're stuck in victim mode. The healing happens when you take a look at yourself and you say, okay, which strings of the harp are being triggered right now? And what do those strings actually represent? Where have they occurred before in my life? Or here's the magical one too, not even just in this exact life, where have they occurred ever in me as the bigger me, not just me on the planet right now in this body in this lifetime, but maybe all the way back to me as a child, right? Like when I was a little girl, what was it back then that is similar to right now? And so I had to do a ton of digging and just sense how like he is the more modern version of my mom. Like he totally resonates those same icky chords that my mom resonated with me when I was freaking born. I mean, I went back all the way to like in utero. And in utero, I could tell the energy of the person who was carrying me. Like I had these amazing, amazing journeys within, uh, where I could see things from a different vantage point and very factually, but very unemotionally. So, like, there was this time when I did this deep meditation and I literally was back in my mom's belly. And I think I was approximately like halfway through, um, her maternity. So maybe I was like, I was probably like the 5 month of development stage. And I was in there and I could look around and I could see like the inside of the womb and how that felt to be in there, how my body felt, and then even how my energy and my heart felt. And I could feel all of her energy because I was a baby inside of her body. I could sense that I had my own energy, but I also was like half her. And the parts of her that were resonating at the time, I could sense, and they felt so yucky. Like I felt her pain and her anger and her anguish. And oh, it was just rough. And I experienced, I guess you could call it a memory, but it wasn't even really a memory. But I guess it was. I could sense that I was a part of something that I didn't want to be a part of. And it was like a separation at that point where I felt different than the person whose body I was inside of. It was so trippy. It was totally crazy. But I felt that. And I knew at that moment that my life was going to be different, that I was going to have to do some serious work as a human on the earth once I was birthed. So, okay, back to the ex. So, like, my ex triggered a lot of stuff that was so, so, so old in me. It was stuff that came through my entire life of being her daughter, essentially. even back to being in her womb. And so that's insane, right? And then I had to go a little deeper than that even. So like I was processing what is this hair-like string on the harp that's being resonated, and where are all the places it has been resonated? Like when has it ever moved, like vibrationally moved? If you can picture like blowing against a spider web and watching it move, right? So, what are all the times that this individual hair like strand has been resonated by an experience? And it took me, I'm going to go with like 8 years to go through all of this stuff. And it still might be there, but it's mostly gone now. And the way I can tell that is because it no longer, quote, triggers me. Like that hair like strand no longer feels vibrated when I'm in his presence. I feel completely neutral now. Like I don't have hatred, I don't have anger, I don't have resentment. I've cleared almost everything that could possibly be triggered between the two of us. And he still tries, but it doesn't feel the same anymore, which is great. It feels so much more peaceful and empowered and neutralized, and no longer something that sets me into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, as my mom once did too. So okay, anyway, going back to that single strand of hair that he resonated in his yuck, when I would feel like ugh, gross, like oh here we go again, and I would kind of freeze up and feel like a knot in my stomach, and I would want to like contract and go into like I'm gonna have to defend myself feeling, and I started realizing, oh, that came from my childhood too. That's how I always felt around my mother, and then even back into the womb. And then as I started doing more and more and more healing work, that single hair-like strand on the harp went back into so many different lifetimes and so many different experiences that I have had as a soul. And again, that's why we call this sacred soul tales, because this isn't just a here and now tale. This is stuff that, if you can picture just like mushrooms and like their infrastructure in a forest, how interconnected they all are. It's like that. It's hair like strands that vibrate for me, and the same ones are vibrating for you and for all of humanity, and all the way back in time, maybe forward in time. Time is not even real. So, beyond time and space, they are uh, dynamics that exist throughout interaction. So whether that's even human to human, or human to animal, plant to plant, animal to animal, I don't even know. But they are dynamics that exist. And so I had this amazing experience where like, okay, so the embryo womb thing was one. And then I went back into past lives and I saw how uh, my inability to speak up for myself, to be able to defend myself when I'm being attacked by somebody like that, because that was a whole issue, and that was presenting itself in my body as well, in my jaw and my neck. Terrible cervical spine issues, TMJ issues, inability to express myself. That was all. It was a whole thing. Um, Mouth issues, dental issues, yeah, craziness. But anyway, so I went back in time, and I experienced again, it was like a little reel playing in front of my face. I experienced being tortured, like in the witch trials, and feeling a helmet like structure on my head and this thing in my mouth that was like supposed to clamp down my tongue, and being publicly embarrassed, like put out into the middle of the town square so that people could mock me and I could feel embarrassed and cast off and essentially die, because if you have a thing on your tongue, you can't eat, you can't drink. And so being pushed to the point of, I guess at the time it was near death. I don't think I actually watched myself die. Usually I don't see myself die in things. I think there's a reason for that. So again, that same sensation of being uh, unable to speak up for myself, unable to defend myself, being abused for something that wasn't wrong. Like I hadn't done anything wrong, and yet I was being mistreated tremendously for just being me, or just telling a truth, or just sticking up for what was right. And so this harp that they showed me this day, I mean, it was so massive for me. And that's why I want to talk about it today and make it one of the first things that I'm sharing with you. The harp concept was huge. Each of those hair-like strands is literally, it's gold, like they're golden threads, right? So if you can go into the strands that are being triggered and resonated, and find every possible way that that strand has ever been in vibrational movement in any time space reality that is related to your soul, and just keep seeing it, acknowledging it, loving on it, and healing it. Seeing it, acknowledging it, loving on it, and healing it over and over and over and over again. Eventually, what will happen is that that strand of hair or string on the actual harp will no longer need to exist. Isn't that magical? Like, it kind of almost goes back to the practice of Ho'oponopono, where as we love and forgive, something just dissolves. There's no longer an energy to it because it has evolved into its highest vibrational state, which is the state of unconditional love. Like, to allow something to just have been and not still tote it and not still give it weight and resonance and existence, and just be able to say, like, yeah, that happened without any emotional charge to it, is how we heal. It's not only how we heal ourselves, it's how we heal dynamics between humans. And it's how we heal the earth and this plane of existence that we all live on. It's how we bring heaven to earth, is by unresonating some of these strands that are on the harp, and instead being able to clear them out and create an actual harp, which is like your soul signature, right? Not even just your physical embodiment, definitely your physical embodiment, but bigger than that even, is to clear the soul of all of these karmas, or I'm trying to remember the word in yoga, cliches, I think maybe is the word. I'm not sure. We have to look that one up. But healing ourselves of all these different things, all these different patterns and experiences, makes us no longer a resonant match to the pain and the emotional baggage and luggage. So we're able to release, we're able to lighten our load. And eventually, what happens if we continue this path over and over and over again, is the wounded healer going in and using our actual wounds to purify and cleanse our soul signature, we become a bridge. We become a bridge for higher vibrational energy to ground itself here on the physical plane. And to me, that means that you and I are these bridges. We are these, like, sometimes people will call it a rainbow bridge, I think because of the chakra system. But we become this like rainbow bridge of light, where we are literally transmuting heavier, denser energies into light, like a higher vibrational, less dense form of energy. And it is an energy that is able to vibrate and resonate at a frequency that is closer to joy, pleasure, happiness. So it's the part of the harp that feels like being on top of the mountain, looking out at this great big expansive vista with so much light and sun and air and sense of grounding. It's just stunning. Like, the colors are brighter, the sounds are lovelier. It's a more beautiful embodiment here on the planet. And so, so taking this harp concept and thinking to yourself, like, okay, so I am this vibrational being, right? I am all these strings, and I am at any given moment able to create a resonant harmonic sound as I exist in the world. So how am I going to show up in every given moment? Am I going to spend that time toting around the luggage, being in the heavier, denser strings where there's just pain vibrating and I'm worried and stressed? Depression is being stuck in a heavy, dense past energy, essentially, right? Like, hopeless. And anxiety is equally as stressful, and it is being so concerned about the future because we don't have faith and hope in goodness, right? We're still kind of living in those heavy, dense vibrations, the ones that are packed up in our luggage trail that we're carrying behind us. We're letting those experiences decide how our harp is being played. And we're letting those experiences dictate our resonant field, our vibrational field. I use those words so interchangeably. To me, they feel the same way. Like, I want my vibration to be resonant with high vibrational energy. That's all kind of the same idea. Anyway, so yeah, where is your harp being played today? Where is my harp being played today? How are we going to create together this beautiful harmonic sound? And I'll tell you this other quick story because in this moment it feels like it's all I can see in front of me, which is beautiful. One time I was doing a healing session with my dear friend who has been my like partner on the healing path for a long time. She's been my guide, my teacher, and we were in this journey, like a healing place that we had gone to shamanically. And in that journey, I was in a circle of elder women, and we were singing and drumming and praying and having a ritual of sorts. And this ritual was for healing, right? It was for the healing of the earth. It was for the healing of our children, ourselves, our loved ones, for humanity at large. And at one point, this giant bird, which was like maybe an eagle, maybe a condor, I couldn't tell. I just know that I was tiny in comparison to it. It had me climb onto its back, and it lifted up, and we began soaring over the land. And what we were soaring on looked like the notes, like written musical notes on paper. It looked like that, but it was like a wave that we were like leaving behind us, just sort of like how an airplane will fly across the sky and leave a contrail behind it, not a chemtrail, a contrail behind it. That's what was behind us, was this like musical staff of notes, and it was gorgeous. And as we soared, I had all of this love in my heart, and the love in my heart was making us feel lighter and more flowy. And like, flight was so easy and graceful, and it felt really, really light and free and flowy. And the bird soared me over the land, and I was just soaring over this beautiful mountainous valley, and there were rivers, and everything was super colorful. So the greens were like this, I can't even describe, I don't have a word for it in English. Maybe there's a word in another language, I'm not sure. But everything was like extra technicolor color. So if it was green, it was green that had like dimension to it. Like I could feel the green. I could almost taste the green. The way that my body was receiving the colors was so much more multidimensional. And the blues and the sense of light and shadow, everything just had this deep, powerful dimensionality to it. And I could again sense it all. It wasn't like I was just seeing it with my eyes. I was feeling the colors, the shapes, the dimensions, the mountains and valleys and trees and the water. I could sense it all in a very different way. And as we soared around, the human beings had a song, and everyone was in joy, and they were all singing the same song. And like we soared high so that I could see across all these different countries, like the different landscapes, mountains and plains and deserts and beaches. I could see everything from the vantage point that we were at, and I could see the humans too. And all of the humans had come out. It was like they were coming out to see a comet, but they came out and they were all looking up, and everyone was singing this beautiful song with the same words. And while I couldn't understand the words of the song, I could understand the tone. And it was more like the sound of like a whale song again. It wasn't actual words. It was like chanting, humming-ish kind of sounds. And but the sound was of plenty. That's what it was. It was abundant plenty, love, peace, harmony, and joy. And it was just this experience of being on the back of this bird from this vantage point, seeing and feeling and sensing color and sound and harmony and joy and peace in a way that I had never even believed could be. I mean, it was literally heaven on earth, is what that bird was showing me that day. It was profound and stunning. And I remember coming back into my physical body and just, I had no words. I was silent for a very long time because what had happened to me had been so transformational in my life to experience that level of peace and love. And we use those words, peace and love, like so arbitrarily and like superficially, but like the actual concept of peace combining with love and how that feels when it is grounded on this planet. Literally, the world we could be is unbelievable. And I am here, just like you, to help ground that reality into the earth. And the way that we do that again is by being like harmonic within ourselves. So so much of our experience is thinking that like we can change the world. Like I can change that person, I can fix that person, I can heal that person. This is part of the wounded healer, right? We want to go off and use our love and our hearts to fix other people. But our job, we have one job, like literally one job, and it's a big one. But our one job is to dive into our own harp and literally repair the harp and attune it to, I'm hearing the sound of the angels. That's what I just heard. Attune your own harp to the sound of the angels. And what does that mean? That means clearing out any baggage, anything that makes you resonate at a frequency of fear or doubt or separation, lack, pain. I'm hearing disconnection. So rather than feeling a union within ourselves, I guess it's the same word as separation, but I'm hearing disconnection. And that feels like almost how I felt when I was in the womb, is how that word feels to me, is like you believed initially, like we came here as this spark of light, believing that we were built for union and love and harmony. And then somewhere along the way, it's like I'm seeing like a plug being pulled out of a wall. Somewhere the plug was pulled on that, and we came into illusion. We came into a broken system, a disconnected system. That's what I'm hearing. So yeah, so our mission then is to go back into our own harp, to pay good attention to which things make us feel vibrant, right? Like vibrationally radiant is how vibrant is coming to me right now. This is beautiful. I love when words do this to me. Um, so finding that, and yes, it is so important to live at that high vibrational state where we are plucking those strings that make it feel good and harmonious and happy. And we have to try to stay there as much as possible. However, there are also, and this is reality, there are also strings that are vibrating with old wounds and pain. And whether that is something that happened to you today, 20 years ago, in utero, in past lifetimes, whatever it might be, if it's being wiggled, if it's being vibrated, if it's being triggered, it's because there's something there that wants forgiveness and healing. It wants closure. It wants to be alchemized into light, into a golden strand of light on that harp. It wants to be able to dissolve so that your harp is filled with strings of love and joy and beauty. We are here to be creators, to create beauty and love in the world. That's why you're drawn to a podcast that has to be, that's, entitled Wounded Healers, because you are one and you know that about yourself. And while we don't want to stay in our wounds, we do want to use our wounds. We want to use those to create a harp that is just resonant with beauty, like that vision that I saw. I have so many more stories to tell, but I would love to tell them on another episode because I don't want this to be too long. We're already at like 35 minutes or something like that. So remember that those deep wounds are where our deepest gifts are. Like they are the places where we have the ability to transmute our wounds into light, and that will make us a louder, more resonant instrument of the divine. I'm hearing an instrument of the divine. That is who you are as a harp. You are an instrument of the divine. That's absolutely beautiful. Remember that treasure is always buried where it's hardest to find, right? So those things are buried. When the string of that harp is vibrated, we might think it's the person outside of us who is doing the harm. But if we have the courage to dive deep, 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 deep down and really look for the actual treasure that's deep inside, that sensation, that emotion, the feeling inside of our body, we will find the absolute truth of what has happened, what lives there, and then we can see it for what it is, which is a path to more wholeness, more love, and more light as we integrate and accept it. I am wishing you a beautiful day. I am wishing you a day where you are able to play those strings of joy and blessings. And remember that it's okay to go into the other strings too. We can't just deny that those wounds are there, or we just live in oblivion, and that's not authentic. And it's also not doing the work. And it's also going to keep you from putting your gifts out into the world, because Those deep wounds are where your gifts live, and you are meant to share your gifts with the world. It is how we help each other come back home, right? By telling our stories, by making each other feel like we understand where we've been. Like, I get you. I know you've done these things too. I know you've been through deep pain, and I feel you. It is definitely part of the human experience, but I also know that you're special because of that. Like, if you are able to take your deep wounds and use them for good without sacrificing your own well being, if you're able to be an alchemist in that way, and you're able to use your healing for good instead of for more pain, holy heck, you're magical. You are a divine being, and I'm honored to be on the path with you. So thank you for sharing this day with me. God bless.